Hey everyone, and welcome to the Superhero Speak interview series. And this week, I am joined by a former guest. Last time he was here, we talked about his book, Charlie's Place. But now we're here to talk about vampires on Mars, and of course, it's the one and
Yes.
only George O'Connor. How are you, sir?
I'm great, man. Thank you for having me back. I appreciate it.
No problem. I told JD I was doing this, and he got a little jealous. But again, I heard that you're going to go see him this week.
Yes, yeah. I'm very excited. My son and I, my son's 14. This is our first wrestling road trip. Up this
Ah,
show up in Chicago. That I was gonna go to. I was like, "Would you want to go?" He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Oh, now I've got like a wrestling road trip buddy." It's very cool. It's these little things of being a parent I didn't expect. That, like I said, all of a sudden I got a wrestling buddy, Marvel movie buddy. He wanted to see Dune 2. I was like, really? I'm like,
wow.
you gotta watch Dune 1. I mean, I don't make the rules. I was like, all right, let's see how he handles this. Like, Dune 1, I really liked Dune 1. I didn't know how it would connect with a 14-year-old, but he dug it.
Yeah. Well, that's good. I mean, there's a
Yeah.
lot of setup in there, but I mean,
Yeah.
14's a good age for stuff like that. I think that's well, my son's been into comic book movies since he was probably like 6 or 7.
Yeah.
Um, and it's
Yeah. They
funny
didn't have.
now he's 22. So, it's fun to have like he acts, he's got a lot of the same views I do, and then he'll sit there and say, "Well, wait, did you think about this aspect?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "No, I didn't." So,
I appreciate that I now have like an inside source to the TikTok take on everything.
oh god. So, let's get down to business a little bit. For the
Absolutely.
people who are watching, what is the elevator pitch for Vampires on Mars?
Uh, a vampire battles a vapid billionaire, chaotic astronauts, and out of control humans in her 300-year-old quest to reach Mars. It's I kind of mashup of Chew, the vibe and the sense of humor of the comic Chew, with the claustrophobic chase of aliens. So we've got some sci-fi, horror, and dark humor all mashed up in there.
Oh, okay.
And ultimately, we're trying to answer the question, how much of our humanity do we have to sacrifice to achieve at the highest level?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that last part was kind of what turned the idea from something I thought would be fun to make into
Mhm.
like, oh, I think we could put some meat on this bone. Like
Right.
we could add something beyond like, kind of the B movie vibe and fun that, look, if you call anything vampires on Mars, there's an expectation. Yeah.
Yes.
And then then it's kind of the fun job of figuring out how to meet those expectations and then build on them.
Right. Okay. And what what was the inspiration for the story? Like, is it just asking that question? Like, what would we how far would we go, or is there
Yeah.
more to it?
So it started with a road trip back from Baltimore Comic Con. At this point, I want to put it in maybe 2012, 2013.
Mhm.
And when you've got an 8-hour car ride, you just BS with your friends. And the phrase, what I said was, I think I'd become a vampire if it meant I'd be around for all like the cool space stuff that we're gonna get to see, like landing on Mars. And then myself and the two people I was with, we just started kicking this idea around, and in a very short time, like all the major mile markers of the story fell into place. And the scientific reasoning of, well, traditional vampires, healing factor, they don't need air, they don't need food, they could handle the radiation, kind of all these things was like, well, wait, maybe scientifically this could happen. And so it, like I said, it just very quickly came together to the point of like, oh well, there's a story here. um
Mhm.
and I started poking at it, again 10, 11 years ago, and actually put a pitch together that unfortunately didn't go anywhere.
Okay.
So I just kind of kept it in my back pocket, there, and just thinking about it. And what I wanted to do is like kind of like make sure I found the right collaborator, the right co-creator, right artist
Right.
to put this together. And so it sat on my laptop for 8 or 9 years, collecting digital dust. I would, I'd drop like ideas and some dialogue lines because it was always rattling around in my head.
Right.
And then Fernando Pinto is the artist and co-creator.
Mhm.
I've been following him on Twitter for years and loved his work. Noticed how many projects and Kickstarters he was constantly, you know, doing work and being involved in projects and Kickstarters. And I loved his art. So, without knowing him, the two things I knew is like I liked his style. And if all these people are working with him, and a lot of them the same people working with him over and over and over again, there's got to be some level of professionalism and just, good vibes with him.
Right.
And 3 years ago, myself and my friend, writer, co-creator of this anthology called Toddler Apocalypse, we wanted to do it's a story anthology, and it was very selfishly my way to work with a bunch of people that I had been following and loving for years.
Right.
And luckily, it's a lot easier to pitch an 8-page story, to kind of like cold call somebody with an 8-page story versus like here's 80 pages of a story.
Mhm.
And luckily the stars aligned and Fernando was able to jump on one of the stories, and working with him was everything I could have hoped for. Again, he is talented. He is great to work with. He brings his own ideas to it that makes everything better. He gets the core idea and then adds to it. And on top of that, one of the most professional, just to have an email conversation with people that I've ever worked with. Very chill, but on time, focused, proactive.
Right.
Again, everything you hope for when you're working with somebody. And so that 8 pages was a dream. And so now it's like, all right, I really got to figure out something to do with Fernando.
Right.
And I didn't necessarily think of Vampires on Mars until one day he posted a couple pages from, I think he said it was from a pitch that didn't go anywhere, that was in more of a manga style. To my uneducated eyes, Fernando, like I put him in kind of like the Rob Gilroy from Chew thing, where
Right.
it's a little cartoony, but it's like grounded, like the
Yeah.
bodies and the faces are grounded enough that it makes sense, but it's also exaggerated enough that you can kind of do anything and it makes sense.
Yes.
So then he posted these manga inspired pages. And I think his quote was like, did this for a pitch that didn't go anywhere. I'd love to do something in this style, but nobody else wants to. And I looked at it and was like, oh my God, that's exactly what I want to do.
Right.
So again, dropped him a line and said, hey, this style, this idea, what do you think? And he got it and he jumped on board. And we made 80 pages together.
So you said something a minute ago, traditional vampire.
Yeah.
And one of the things JD loves to say all the time when we talk about, mythical creatures used in stories is, how do you kill a vampire, right? Because everyone does something different with a vampire when they tell a vampire story. So did you go the classic Dracula route, or did you change some things around? What kind of vampires are we dealing with?
So the riff we kind of put on it was, the whole stake in the heart thing. Well,
Mhm.
what if that just came about because that was the weapon of the time, right? Like that's what you had. You had stakes.
Right.
And really it's like you puncture a heart with anything, and you're gonna die.
Right.
But why would vampires advertise, actually, there are a lot more different weapons you could use against us? So that's kind of how, and then of course there's the traditional just rip them apart,
Mhm.
yeah, whether it's Twilight, for better or for worse, they did enjoy a good head popping. Um, or True Blood, you know.
Right.
So that's what we're kind of playing with. The rules, that we set up is, like I said, anything could pierce their heart and it would, they die. So, they're not as safe on a metal ship as, traditionally you'd think. They still have the healing. They still, they still need blood. They don't need air. So, just playing with all of these and how it would affect, please note the heavy, finger quotes around this. How it would affect the ship, how, the pluses and minuses of that. And so we kind of played with that riff as well, because one of the real problems facing missions to Mars is the amount of fuel you need to push a rocket, a ship that big with all the stuff you need to make it to Mars and back in a relatively sane amount of time.
Right.
So we're riffing with the idea of like, well, maybe vampires mean you can just make this thing lighter. So that's so we took the core belief and knowledge that we all have and riffed it a little bit to fit our story.
Okay. This might be giving something away, but I'm also kind of curious, and I'm going to have to get the book now. Is
I know a guy.
The vampire? You said it. Vampires need blood, but once you get to Mars, there aren't people to feed on. So that's gonna be.
We have a solution.
Okay.
That's all I'll say. We're aware of that sticking point, and we've solved it.
Okay, that's what I figured, but I just figured I'd throw it out there.
Yep.
And along the lines of traditional vampires and vampires, what, and I'm sure you love all of them, but what is your favorite vampire story?
Oh man, you know what? Let's go with Blade. And I'm the comic book nerd.
Okay.
I'm the comic book nerd. And that first Blade movie was fantastic. And that third Blade movie was so batshit that I am in love with all of the onset stories that it spawned. Patton, I'm a huge fan of Patton Oswalt, and he's got retelling his time on that set. And I love that he's like, oh, I knew this would be a complete shit show, which is why I took the job, because I had to be there to see how this was going to happen.
The best part of that, I mean, we all know the stories about Wesley Snipes because he saw they were squeezing him out, and he was refusing to do the movie. And it's the last scene when he's laying on the slab, and he refused to open his eyes. So it's like one of the first times they did something with CGI where he made his eyes open.
Yeah, that movie's beautifully insane.
Yeah. It's funny. I've said it's a tough one. I've always been partial to Interview with a Vampire.
Yes, that's an elegant one, right? Like, even for all the horror in there, like the real horror and then kind of like the psychological horror that they bring in there, it's very elegant, and elevated.
Yes. So this is issue 1 is the Kickstarter.
Yes.
And so what is the plan? Like, do you know how many issues it's going to be total?
It's going to be a 4-issue series.
Okay.
Yep.
And they're all done, ready to go?
I'm sorry?
They're all done and ready to go?
Almost. So art is done. So issue 1 is done. If we had to, I could send it to a printer right now. So, and I like letting people know when they're backing, stuff on Kickstarter.
Right.
I like taking that pressure on. Like, I don't know if anybody's going to like this, but I'm going to make sure that all of my collaborators are paid up front. And, if you back this, you're going to get it, and you're going to get it as soon as I can get it to you. 2, 3, and 4 are drawn. Fernando's done. Our colorist, Ellie Wright, Ringo nominated colorist Ellie Wright, has finished her 2, 3, and 4. And it is now in our letterer, Justin Birch, also Ringo nominated. And so he is lettering it at the moment. The only hiccup with that is Justin is very good at his job and gets a whole lot of, oh my God, Justin, our book is about to fall behind. Can you please, 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 please save our ass?
Yeah.
So yeah, where I'm like, we're cool, we're gonna get it done. I mean, yeah, I was gonna say, just start putting Justin over, but like this is a legit dream team.
Mhm.
And again, it all kind of got born out of that Toddler Apocalypse anthology. Ellie did one of the stories and did our variant hardcover, and she knocked it out of the park. And again, absolutely wonderful to work with. And Justin, he was the one letter on the book, and he tied everything together. 6 different creative teams, 6 different stories, all with their own isms and vibes and look, but he's the thread that kept it all tight and together. And again, he's a great person. I think as I have gotten older, kind of leaning into the no assholes policy of like making this stuff is hard enough when
Yeah.
everybody is coming in with the best vibes and the best intentions and all of that stuff. It's still hard, and then life's going to get lifey along the way. So the one thing I can control is making the process as stress-free and fun and supportive and collaborative as possible. And then you bring people like Fernando, Ellie, and Justin on board, and kind of point them in a direction, tell them what the goal is, and then just get out of their way. They are experts at what they do. They care about what they do, and I will never understand lettering as much as Justin. I will never understand color palettes like Ellie. I'll never understand drawing and the directorial part of creating a book like Fernando. So why in God's name would I tell them what to do?
Right.
And then everybody gets to put their own experiences and thoughts and creativity into it, and it always turns out better than my original seed, and that's the fun part for me.
Yeah, and that is a great attitude, I think, when you're doing something like this is and everyone who's successful has always said that too, right? You surround yourself with talented people and let them do what they do best.
Yeah.
So,
And I am happy to sit here with the pom-poms,
right,
the whole way. And I let them know, like, look, I'm not, and I don't like to be micromanaged, so I'm not going to micromanage.
right,
I am here to answer any question, to have any conversation you want. If you're not hearing from me, it's because I respect your time and I trust you.
right. So, and it's funny because the other thing that's coming to mind, this story took a long time, right? The idea came to you a long time ago, and it took a long time to get to this point. And I'm sure there are people who are watching this who want to get into the field
Yeah.
and might be discouraged by hearing something like that. What would you
Yeah.
say to someone that about that?
That there's no one right way to make this stuff. I chose a path for a specific reason. When that original pitch was put together 10 years ago, I don't think the independent Kickstarter world is what it is now.
Right.
And Lord knows I didn't have the knowledge and the tools to successfully bring a series to Kickstarter.
Yeah.
Um, so everybody's in a different spot. And the main reason that it sat the way it did was just trying to be patient and wait for that right collaborator. And that entire time I'm still going to New York Comic Con and going,
Mhm.
slowly going up and down Artist Alley and buying books, which you should at every convention. Throw your money around Artist Alley like you're a sailor on leave. Collecting business cards, and on Twitter, like just building this I don't know, repository is not the right word, but like my timeline is gorgeous. because I followed artists. I followed artists, fantastic artists who were good people who also supported the community. And when you do that, they start retweeting and putting other people over, and now it just builds and builds and builds. So again, that was the route I went. And yes, it was tough. There were a lot of times where I felt like I was wasting time, that that maybe I don't know, it was out of fear, that I wasn't pulling the trigger. But I mean, what I would tell anybody is, like, it's worth it. I think I've been making stuff since I was 15 years old. Started with music, and it's expanded to almost every media at this point. And it's worth it, especially when you go in with an open mind, when you go in with a collaborator's vibe, that's what you want to curate. You're going to learn so much just by letting other people do their thing. And you never know, like going back to that Artist Alley thing, that the story you think is like, oh, this is the story I want to tell, but it's like, it's too niche, or it's too weird, or it's too out there, no one's gonna get it. Go to a convention, walk around Artist Alley, you're gonna see people doing stuff in that vein, and you're gonna also see people buying stuff in that vein.
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny because I know that you're a musician as well, and I have to imagine being able to collaborate with people comes also from being in bands, right? Because usually you don't tell the drummer what to play, is if he knows what he's doing. You don't tell the bass player, oh, do this,
I'm embarrassed to say it took me longer to like really understand that to my core. And I give comics a lot of credit for making me a better bandmate, because it was realizing I'm never going to understand the color wheel like Ellie. I'm never. And for her, and for me to do the work and learn and to have conversations with her, the gap of where I am and where she is, and keeping in mind someone like Ellie, who's, it feels like she's got a rocket strapped on her right now. I mean, on top of being Ringo nominated, she was Ringo's, I think, favorite new talent last year.
Oh, wow.
And she's getting killer gigs. So, so not only is she good, she is learning and she is leveling up.
Right.
So I could try and catch up to her. Or I could say, hey, I'm looking for something spooky here. Right. And let her find that spooky in the language that she wants to tell. I think early on, I probably, unfortunately, was the guy telling the bass player what to play. I'm a guitar player. I can tell you what to do on bass. And then, this current band that I'm in, that I've been in for like 14 years, our bass player, his name's Jeff. He is amazing. When I first crossed paths with him 25 years ago, he was like the one guy in the Boston band, in the Boston music scene. He's like, if I could steal him, I think I would. And so here we are. I've got to play with him for 14 years and watch how he works and thinks, and realizing it's just, he approaches things differently. And when you give him room, and our drummer, Tommy's fantastic as well, when you point them in a direction, tell them the vibe, and get out of their way, you're going to get what you want and more.
Yeah.
And that's where the special comes in.
Yes, exactly. I've been in quite a few bands, and I've worked with a guy who is like, can't you play like, and he'll say like, oh, this is back in 2000, and it's like, can't you play like the guy from Three Doors Down on this? And it's like, what? Like,
I mean, I could.
Right.
Yeah.
So, shoot, question just went out of my head. So okay, so 4 issues for this. Like you said, it's finishing up. Do you have any other projects in the barrel coming down the road?
This is my main focus right now. if everything goes the way I hope, we're going to launch each issue basically as we get one issue out. We're going to launch the next one.
Mm-hmm.
So, Vampires on Mars is potentially the next year and a quarter, year and a half of my life, for better or for worse. And this stuff and running a Kickstarter takes focus and energy.
Yes.
And I also have a wife that I'm quite fond of, and I have a son who I love, and now, like I said, now go out of town to wrestling events with, along with everything else that comes along with life. So this is my main focus. The asterisk I'll put in there, and again, it's just another way for me to put Fernando over. Again, there's, like any creator, I've got a file full of ideas. And there's been one I've been poking around for a while, and about a wrestler who gets sucked up into space and kind of thrown into a gladiator galaxy quest type of story. And it's been in my head for a while, and one day, like, oh wait, I think I know what like the 6 or 7 page teaser is. And so I put it together, and I was like, Fernando, what would you think? Like, I know you're busy, and he is, like, on top of, like, he wrapped up Vampires. He is wrapping up his own Kickstarter for his book called Gun Punch, which he's going to be working on producing the rest of the year. And he's also got 2 other projects he's working on, and a bunch of others that he's like, I'm not ready to talk about yet. So that's who Fernando is. And so I know all of them. It's like, hey man, what do you think about this? And before I knew it, he's like, here's some character sketches. I'm like, oh, okay, I guess you like it. And before I knew it, he's like, here's some rough layouts. And before I knew it, it's like, here's the art. I'm like, okay, I guess he's into it. I guess he'd like to do, I guess he's not opposed to doing another project with me. So, so that's the other thing that I'm poking around right now. But I'm also trying to stay sane. So, it is, I am not somebody who I've never been it's not the destination, it's the journey. It's like, no, it's the destination. Let's get to the destination. So like purposefully, that came out bad. Slowing down and accepting that some things are just not going to happen soon.
Yeah.
I'm starting to get used to it. But it's something there, and it is always cool when a creator that you admire kind of like gets geeked up about an idea. Like I said, it was the softest of pitches, and he was like, yeah, I'm in. I'm like, okay, then there's something here.
All right.
So that's it. And outside of the comic book world, my band Swarm of Eyes, we're working and gigging, trying to finish up an EP. So we're doing that, and stretching our necks and taking Advil after gigs and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And on top of that, trying to be as doofy as this might sound, trying to be the best husband and father I can be.
All right. That might be the answer to the last question, but we'll get that in a second. The most important question, though, before we run out of time here, is where can people find you online?
Absolutely. So I live on Twitter, for better or for worse. And you can follow me at Lazy Horde. So LazyHorde. And that's where I'm at. If you'd like to check out the books that I've co-created, you can go to homelesscomics.com. And we've got a PDF that you can download, and you can get free previews of all of our books up there. And then if there's one that you dig, the shop's open. Right behind me is where they all live. And on behalf of the entire house, we would like to get some of that back room back. So I will happily send any of those books to you. So those, like I said, those are the 2 main places that I hang out. And if we're wrapping up, if I could do one last plug,
Okay.
for Vampires on Mars.
All right.
Yeah, we've talked about the comic and the idea and all of that. And it's something I'm really proud of, and I'm excited that I get to make it with Fernando, Ellie, and Justin. I wanted to do something special for this.
Mhm.
And I am a space and astronomy, dork. If it wasn't clear already. And so I was like, all right, we're using, again, note the air quotes, we're being scientific about sending vampires to Mars.
Right.
I wonder how close or off we are. And there is an astronomer and science writer his name is Phil Plait. I discovered him because of the Discovery series, How the Universe Works.
Mhm.
And he's one of those guys that has the ability to take like big science stuff and break it down where the layperson can not only understand it, but his enthusiasm transfers over to you. And so I reached out to him, and he's also got a great sense of humor.
Mhm.
So I reached out to him cold with the email subject line interview request. Could vampires survive the trip to Mars? I subscribe to his newsletter, and he's got a little bottom. It's like, if you want to email me, but I'm busy and it may take a
Mhm.
while to respond. And so I sent it off thinking like, all right, in 2 or 3 months, if he doesn't respond, I'll follow up. Less than 24 hours, he responds like, haven't heard this one before. Let's do it. So the extra thing that I am still shocked I get to say is Phil Plait and I did a 45-minute interview talking about his background, the current state of missions to Mars, kind of some of the breakthroughs that we need to make the next leap. And then, of course, whether or not vampires could survive the trip to Mars. And we took that interview and we're breaking that up over each of the issues. So each issue is going to have about 3 pages of this interview in there. And, I was already stoked to be working with Fernando, Ellie, and Justin, and to have someone who truly inspires me. I got to see him talk in Boston last week. He was talking about the eclipse,
Mhm.
and his love of science was palpable,
Right.
and like I walked out feeling inspired as a creator. And so being able to have him be a part of this, it makes it special as well. And so I'm still blown away that he said yes. So I love just letting everybody know that, we have a legit science writer and astronomer. He worked on the Hubble,
Right.
and he's talking to me about whether or not vampires could make it to Mars.
Perfect. All right. Well, the question that we normally wrap up
Yes.
on is, how do you measure success?
That's a great question, and I know we've already talked a while. I am I'll just be real with you and real with everybody. I am in the process of rewiring my head when it comes to success.
Mhm.
I have a therapist that I love, and one of the things that we're working on is I am very externally driven,
Mhm. Yeah.
or I need external validation.
Yeah.
And that's success. The success was selling books at a convention, funding a Kickstarter, being invited to the party,
Yeah.
at San Diego Comic-Con, that type of thing. And realizing what a fool's errand that has been, and kind of like actually how much I don't know, frustration that has brought me. So like I said, I'm literally in the process of rewiring my head about this. So when I think about success, I try and think about what can I control.
Mhm.
And so, what I can control is my vibe, my energy, and how I treat other people.
Right.
So if my, in the comic book world, in the music world, if my bandmates, my collaborators, feel empowered to do their best, and want to work with me again, that's success. If everybody in my house feels safe and loved, that's a success. You know, if I can bring peace to people, as overdramatic as that might sound, if I can bring peace to people's lives, that's a success. And if I can, if I can keep moving that pendulum over to like internal versus external, then I will
Right.
take that as a success.
All right, cool. Well, thank you very much for your time. And
Absolutely.
for everyone watching, all those links for the Kickstarter and where to find George online, it's all down in the description below. So make sure you go check it out, support the campaign. And yeah, and on that note, boys and girls, as always, thanks for watching. Don't let your cape get caught in the door. Have a good week.